Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. This is the Bodega Cat Book Club Health Edition, and today we're continuing our reading of Never Be Sick Again by Raymond Francis. And today we'll be reading chapter 7, and this will be part 2. So let's get right into it. Okay. Okay. Just trying to decide if I should move the camera in a little bit or not, but I think it looks okay. If you have a book, you can follow it with us there. Or you could follow with us on the screen, on the camera here. Whatever works for you. Healthy mind, healthy immune system. Negative behaviors, thoughts, emotions, and stress can adversely affect the functioning of your immune system. You can lower your resistance to infections, and they can lower your resistance to infections and make you more susceptible to bacteria, fungi, viruses, and other microorganisms. Yet, you can exercise control. You can begin immediately, actively, and consciously to improve your ability to fight disease and maintain optimal health. Speaking about the psychological dimension of the immune system, David Felton, MD, professor of neurobiology and anatomy at the University School of Rochester, said, "Now there's an overwhelming evidence that hormones and neurotransmitters can influence the activities of the immune system and that products of the immune system influence the brain. In order to protect you from infections, your brain and your immune system must be in constant dialogue. Your brain sends information to the immune system by producing certain types of chemical messengers, neuropeptides. That information is delivered to immune cells through receptor sites on cell membranes. Rather like plugging an electrical appliance into a wall outlet, chemical messengers from your brain plug in to the receptor sites on the immune cells. This messaging process happens on a very large scale, allowing the brain to deliver information to immune cells throughout the body. Likewise, the body's immune cells respond by creating new chemical messengers, sending information back to the brain. This process creates a constant link or feedback loop between the brain and the immune system. The role of the psychological pathway in immune system function is illustrated by a study of 26 bereaved spouses. The study demonstrated that the pain and stress of bereavement significantly depress the effectiveness of the immune system. In other studies, depressed immunity in students, determined by the number and activity of T cells, has been shown to result from the psychological stress of taking exams. Psychologically depressed immunity can even lead to cancer. As far back as the 2nd century AD, the physician and philosopher Galen observed that melancholy dispositions disposed women toward developing breast cancer. A 1998 study in the Journal of the National Cancer Institute came to the same conclusion. In that study, women who experienced long-term depression were almost 90% more likely to develop cancer than their upbeat counterparts. Just a side note, when I was working as a cancer nurse, hospice nurse, sometimes I see patients with cancer, they would beat it, the cancer would go into remission, and then, years later, the cancer would come back with a vengeance the second time, or the third time, or the fourth time, or whatever. It would come back, much more aggressive. And I was wondering, I'm wondering if that has to do with their psychological. The reason why the cancer came back was because of some kind of a stress or psychological thinking or something like that, negative thinking or something. I don't know. Interesting. I never, I wasn't aware of that at the time. I kind of sort of had a hint or a intuitive thought about it, but I never really did a what do you call it? A unofficial research or whatever you call it, case study. But I mean, looking back, it just kind of makes you wonder. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. The Jekyll and Hyde of stress. Stress has an upside and a downside. Stress can induce positive emotions, excitement, passion, and positive arousal. Alternatively, stress can bring on negative emotions such as fear, anxiety, and anger. In both cases, the same body systems are involved, with good excitement and bad fear can increase heart rate and blood pressure. And a side note, the body does not know whether it's good or bad. It does not differentiate good or bad. It is your consciousness, your mind that differentiates whether what kind of value you put with it, whether it's a positive value or a negative value. Just a side note there. With different mental outlooks, however, different results occur. In a positive mental outlook, health improves. With a negative mindset, cells are damaged and health is impaired. Meaning with stressful challenges that appear in our lives, the chance for a promotion at work, for instance, can help us grow and develop. When chronic and negative, however, stress damages our cells and impairs our health. Any perceived threat, such as an attacking predator, a crazy driver, or an urgent deadline, causes your nervous system to stimulate both the pituitary and the adrenal glands, releasing stress hormones such as adrenaline. These hormones provide a rush necessary to prepare the body for sudden action by increasing heart rate, breathing rate, blood flow to the muscles, blood pressure, and other vital functions. This stress reaction was historically important for survival, part of the fight or flight response, which enables us to enhance performance through an increase in our physical and mental capacities for an immediate shift into emergency mode. Production of these chemicals, however, was meant to be episodic. An emergency would come and it would pass. Unfortunately, for many people, stress is now chronic. People are working more and sleeping less, and the pace of daily living is accelerating. When chronically mobilized, stress chemicals build up in our system and damage our cells and tissues. Kind of gives the phrase slow down and smell the roses a different meaning, doesn't it? Or stop and smell the roses, or whatever that phrase is. Slow down your life and breathe, right? Very important. Stress chemicals can lead to damaged immunity, increased susceptibility to infectious disease, damaged blood vessels, maldigestion, sleep disturbance, water retention, fat deposits, hypoglycemia, ulcers, anxiety, high blood pressure, cardiac irregularities, lower pain threshold, lower sperm count, reduced sexual performance, anxiety, and depression. According to the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, stress is among the top 10 reasons Americans miss work. The American Medical Association, AMA, has estimated that up to 70% of all patients seen by general practice physicians show symptoms directly related to stress. Job stress can chronically raise blood pressure, and stress from lack of control on the job can even increase the risk of heart disease, such as, for example, by changing the parameters of blood clotting factors. On a positive note, a 1997 study at Duke University showed that heart attack victims who learned to manage their stress levels could reduce the risk of a repeated heart attack by 74%. Unfortunately, many of us now spend much time during the day in emergency mode as a result of all kinds of what should be non-emergency activities, such as catching buses, driving cars, attending meetings, and doing daily work. As a result, we flood our systems with stress chemicals unnecessarily, and we do so on a chronic basis. To minimize damage from chronic stress, we must find healthful ways to adapt. Adaptation is what stress management is all about. Our ability to adapt is part of what has allowed humankind to survive so well in diverse environments. We must learn how to choose and interpret today's challenges in ways that convert potentially distressful situations to exciting, challenging ones, as well as learn productive coping strategies when distress is unavoidable. If you know of a certain person, situation, or location that stresses you, Choose to avoid putting that stress on yourself by avoiding that person. Oops, sorry. By avoiding that person, situation, or location. Do not put pressure, stress on yourself. When doing so will likely have no effect on the outcome of the situation. You have the power to choose. If you're stuck in a traffic jam, you can either stress out or you can seize the opportunity to breathe deeply and relax. Yeah, just another side note. I have classical music channel on in my car. So, when I'm stuck in traffic, I listen to classical music. There was a study many years ago, and I haven't been able to find it. If anyone finds it, please put it in the comments below. There was a study done many years ago between playing classical music. They find that this study was they played classical music in the background in like retail stores, and they found a significant amount of decrease in shoplifting with the classical music playing in the background as opposed to other music. I don't know which study was that. I haven't been able to find it, but anyways, that's what I heard. Interesting, eh? Classical music relaxes you. Yep. Okay, sorry about that. Got a little squirrel there. Okay, let me backtrack. If you are stuck in a traffic jam, you can either stress out or you can seize the opportunity to breathe deeply and relax. Neither action makes the traffic move faster, but one approach makes you healthier and the other makes you sicker. If you become visibly irritated when standing in lines or following slow drivers, at those times you may want to evaluate the degree to which you allow life's little irritations to impact negatively on your health and well-being. So stressful situations is only stressful to you if you allow it to get to you, right? Many distressful situations are impossible to avoid. In fact, we would not want to avoid all of them. As Robert Ornstein, MD, and David Sobel, PhD, explain in their book, The Healing Brain, if we tried to avoid all stressors, no one would ever marry, have children, take a job, get divorced, or invent anything at all. The way we react to stress, they say, appears to be more important than the stress itself. The onset and course of disease are strongly linked to a person's ability and willingness to cope with stress. Helplessness is worse than stress itself. Many effective techniques exist for reducing the stress in our lives, including counseling, prayer, meditation, therapy, exercise, yoga, self-hypnosis, keeping a journal, social support, and other alternatives. Find what works for you and understand that your health is constantly affected by the way you respond to and interpret the stressful situations in your life. Your levels of distress are determined by your choices, but not simply by the random happenings in your busy life. Love leads the way. The good emotions, love, compassion, spiritual awareness, have extremely powerful implications for health, but they're often difficult to define, explain, or measure. These complex and non-tangible concepts remain perhaps the most real considerations in our lives. Understanding their power over health and disease is critical to understanding and practicing effective healthcare. Strong social support, including family relationships, friendships, relationships with health practitioners, romantic relationships, and relationships with spiritual leaders and figures, is a critical component of healthcare. People are typically healthier and recover from diseases more effectively when they have strong social ties. Why? Perhaps people simply feel cared for and hopeful about their future. Perhaps the bonds that people form transcend our traditional scientific understanding of health, even into realms of spirit and energy. However it works, people who relate with others do help each other through adversities, allowing for greater health and wellness than people who are isolated and alone. Although relationships cannot be put onto a slide and examined under a microscope, many studies have cited the effects of relationships or lack of relationships on health and disease. People who are single, separated, divorced, or widowed are more than twice as likely to die than their married peers, and 5 to 10 times more likely to be hospitalized for mental disorders. Social isolation is as big a risk factor for disease as smoking. People with minimal social connections, such as those with few families or friends, with few friends and family, and people who tend not to participate in their communities are 2 to 5 times more likely to die prematurely than those with more extensive social ties. I want to qualify that with that. You can have, you know, it's not about quantity, in my opinion, it's about quality. So you can have maybe a handful of people who are intimately connected in your life, but they have really deep, good quality relationships, as opposed to, having hundreds or thousands of superficial friends, right? Quote unquote friends or acquaintances on social media or whatever. So I think the quality makes a difference. And you don't really need a lot of friends, in my opinion. You have a handful of good, solid, honest, quality friendships or relationships. You're good. I think you're good. These differences are independent of age, sex, and or an ethnic or cultural background. Of course, I'm talking in generalities. Everybody is different. I have to qualify that. Sorry, little squirrel there. Studies of medical students during stressful exam periods found that the biggest drop in immunity occurred in students who reported being lonely. When experimental subjects were injected with cold viruses, individuals with fewer social ties were 4 to 6 times more likely to develop colds as those who had more social ties. The death rate among Russian men increased by nearly 40% following the fall of communism attributed to social instability. Love is a deep and vital part of ourselves and a critical aspect of the psychological pathway. There is love for oneself, love for other people, for pets, love in spiritual practice, and much more. True love, of course, is unconditional, existing for its own sake because you choose it and want it in your life. Another side note, unconditional love does not mean enabling that person. You still have to have boundaries. Sometimes you have to have tough love, in order to have unconditional love. So just wanted to qualify that as well. Finding and feeling love, however, can be a challenge. Anger, frustration, fear, jealousy, apathy, all can interfere with our ability to love ourselves and those dear to us. Part of being able to love is being able to have compassion, both for yourself and for the people around you. Understanding the obstacles that you face in your life makes it possible and easier to understand the obstacles others face. Within this perspective, you can have compassion for anyone, even someone who mistreats you. Likewise, having compassion for yourself is not only possible, but essential. Sometimes we succeed and sometimes we fail. Facing life's obstacles is challenging, as we all know, but without compassion and love, obstacles may seem insurmountable. If we do not fill our lives with love and compassion, then we make room for their opposites, such as anger and hostility, which are incredibly harmful to our health and happiness. As Redford Williams, MD, author of the book Anger Kills, wrote, getting angry is like taking a small dose of some slow-acting poison every day of your life. At the Behavioral Medicine Research Center at Duke University, Williams has researched the effects of anger, particularly how stress chemicals cause heart disease. He found that chemicals released by the body during periods of anger and hostility damage the linings of arteries. Another study reported in a 1980 issue of Psychosomatic Medicine found that people who are cynical, who have hostile attitudes, and who have suppressed anger have more atherosclerosis and blockage of coronary arteries and are more likely to have heart attacks. Oh, sorry. The power of prayer. Perhaps the best way to maintain love and compassion in your life is to consciously seek and practice it. Enlightened leaders and global spiritual traditions advocate spiritual practice as an essential foundation of comprehensive health and vitality, including all aspects of a sound mind and body. This book does not advocate any specific religion or spiritual practice, but does recommend some type of practice. Why? Because being self-involved, self-centered, and stuck in your own head is so easy. Only when body, mind, and spirit are fully integrated can you truly optimize your health. Spiritual practice brings about measurable changes in the brain and in overall health. Sorry, I know I want to sneeze. Maybe not. Okay. Larry Dossey, MD, in his book Healing Words, described one of the best kept secrets in medical science, the benefits of prayer. And just a side note, there are many types of prayer. There's active prayer, and then there's passive prayer. Interesting topic, prayer. Dr. Dawson defines prayerfulness as a feeling of love, compassion, and empathy toward another. And he explains that prayer is a powerful and legitimate, if often overlooked, method of healing. Dawson uses an impressive array of evidence to show that prayer can have a positive effect on health. In a 1988 study conducted in San Francisco, investigated the effects of prayer on the cardiovascular health of 393 coronary care patients. Unknown to the patients involved, one group was prayed for and the other was not. At the end of the 10-month study, the prayed for group was 5 times less likely to require antibiotics and 3 times less likely to develop a condition in which the lungs filled with fluid. Dr. Dossey's research also found that prayer can have beneficial effects on various living cells and organisms, including mice, chicks, fungi, yeast, bacteria, and enzymes. In the October 2001 issue of the Journal of Reproductive Health, researchers at Columbia University, expressing great surprise at their own profound findings, announced that when complete strangers prayed for women who went to a fertility clinic, the women had twice the pregnancy rate as women for whom prayers were not given. How does spirituality influence health and performance? And how do we integrate it into healthcare promotion and practice as professionals and as individuals? No one scientifically understands the mechanisms. Actually, there is. In pranic healing, Grandmaster Chogyok Sui talks about that, the scientific mechanisms of prayer and meditation, and the spiritual what's the word? The mechanics of spirituality. He talks about that. And Master Choa was he was the founder of pranic healing, and he was a engineer. I said was because he's no longer in the body. He passed in 2008, I believe. But his pranic healing teaching um, is an international organization and it's spread around the world, and it changed my life. That's how I started with Reiki, and then I transitioned into pranic healing. Anyways, there is a scientific mechanism to that. It's just that we're not taught, but it is there. Nonetheless, there was a scene. I'm going a lot of squirrels there, sorry. There was a scene in Thor, the Marvel movie with Chris Hemsworth, where he was explaining to Jane, what you call magic or woo-woo is science in our realm, that is a true statement. There is a scientific explanation. We're just not aware of it, or we're not taught it. Nonetheless, the scientific data prove that spirituality does work. Such data pose profound questions. Perhaps these precise questions are the ones we need to be asking in order to develop a more complete understanding of health. Even if we don't have all the answers, we can still benefit from the power of spiritual practice. And just a little plug here for my spiritual community. If you submit your prayer requests either to my website or to my spiritual community's website, Astara, they have spiritual practitioners who pray over the prayer petitions that come in. They pray for them every day. And then if you have a physical health or psychological health issue, we have energy healers who can help with healing specific areas that you know, ask for. So I'll put the link in the description box below. And for me, this is just a personal note. I write, if you submit your prayer petitions or prayer requests to the Bodega Cat Healing Center website. I write them out every month, handwrite them every month, and I send them to Astara and to have them prayed for. And we also come together as a group on Tuesdays to pray over the prayer petitions that are sent in. So yeah, you're going to have a lot of support, spiritual support, when you send in your prayer petitions. Now, it doesn't have to be for yourself. It could be for other people. But, for me, when I talk to people on the phone and I listen to their stories, I'll ask them, would you like me to put you on our prayer list? And for those who say yes, I, I, I write it out, send them in every month. So just a little plug there for you guys. I know a lot of people are struggling right now, not just physically, but, psychologically, emotionally. A lot of people grieving for a lot of losses, with pets and family, financial struggles and challenges. These are some of the common ones that come in through to my desk. Okay, anyways, a great opportunity. While health generally is measured and understood at the physical level, as we have discussed, psychological health and physical health are indivisibly one and the same. What goes on in your mind is also going on in your body. And the good news is that you have a wide menu of practical, productive, self-empowering, and exciting options to promote psychological and therefore physical and well-being. Too many people fall into self-defeating lifestyle patterns. If you want to move yourself in the right direction on the psychological pathway and improve your health for the better, you cannot continue to do the same negative things and expect to obtain different and positive results. That's called insanity. Doing the same thing over and over, expecting the same results. Expecting different results, sorry. I don't know who said that. I think it was Einstein, but I could be mistaken. Changing one's patterns of behavior, belief, thinking, feeling, perception, and physical response is the goal of the psychological pathway. Such changes take practice and commitment. The first step is to notice and identify the feelings associated with stress, then to implement strategies consciously to take care of yourself. Beyond mental techniques such as prayer, biofeedback, therapy, meditation, and numerous self-regulation techniques, physical activities can also be helpful, including exercise, breathing techniques, yoga, massage, saunas, and hot baths. Understanding how the mind affects the function or malfunction of our cells enables us to make the positive choices that enable us to maintain or improve health. Keeping a healthy outlook is both one of the life's great challenges and one of life's great opportunities. Having a purpose, a higher meaning to your life than mere existence, is a critical part of the whole picture of health. End of chapter 7. Well, I hope you enjoyed that. And I'll leave the links that I talked about in the description box below. And yeah, I hope you guys all have a great week, and we'll see you next week for another chapter. Okay, bye-bye now.